Hey guys, I'm Kevin. I'm a certified personal trainer and I used to be way bigger and did way cooler things. Follow along as I rebuild my physique, break new ground, help other people do the same, and share the knowledge and experience that came with 20 plus years of training. Alright, the first exercise I'm doing is a bent over seated rear delt raise. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm focusing on shoulders today, and if you want to look wide, not just from the front, you got to take care of this muscle right here. Because when you turn to the side, it's not just the front delts, it's also the rear delts that give you that width. So when it comes to doing this exercise, you want to use grip straps. Because the way dumbbells work, you see how that spins? No matter how strong your grip is, it's going to come into play when you're doing an exercise that has rotation like that. So what you want to do is grab a pair of dumbbells, crank them on, and you don't want to think about trying to raise them up. See what my shoulders do? You don't want that. You want to think about creating an arc and pushing the dumbbells away from you. Your scapula will move, and so will your shoulder blades. But the goal is not to retract the shoulder blades, but push those dumbbells away in an arc. You also want to keep your back as flat as possible, but bend over as much as you can without losing that, but still having enough range of motion to move those dumbbells. All right, so I've already done my 2 warm-up sets, and now it's time to hit my top set. The goal for the rep range here is around 7 reps, but 6 to 8 is fine. A little above that, a little below that is still okay, but the main focus is just getting to 1 RIR or 1 rep away from failure. Let's see how we do here. Alright. So as you can see, I was way out of rep range there, but you know what? That happens. Like I said, the main goal is to get you close to failure. So that was our top set. Now we're going to do a back off. Alright, so I've rested my 2 to 3 minutes, which you're supposed to do between sets. So it's time to hit that back off. What you want to do is usually pick a weight that's 90% of your top weight, but we don't exactly have 27.5s here, so I'm shooting for 25s. You're still trying to get close to failure and get to around like 1 RIR again. Since it's 80% instead of 90%, I'm probably gonna have to bump the reps even more. But, you know, do what you gotta do, right? Yeah. All right, so 15, that's way out of range, but like I said, do what we had to do. All right, so now we're moving on to side delts, because when I was talking about that 3D shoulder look, you still got to take care of how you look from the front. And this next movement's going to hit it perfectly. So what we're going to do is a heavy side lateral partial. When people think about side laterals, they always think about this, right? Coming up to here. What we're going to do is only come up to here. This really isolates the side delt very well and takes the traps out of it, as well as act as an overload movement for side laterals, which I do earlier in the week. Grab the dumbbells, definitely strap up for these. Brace your abs, lean forward slightly, very slightly. Keep your head up, and then just swing. You do still want to control it. This isn't going to be an ego movement. Yeah, you're using some pretty heavy weights, but you're not going to go crazy with it. You can speed up the eccentric a little bit here, but not too much. You still want to feel that tension when you're coming down. So as just with the rear delts, you don't want to think about raising them. You want to think about creating that arc, you know? That's how you really activate those delts. And now that we're on to the top set, you want to shoot for a little bit of higher reps here, since we're not controlling the eccentric as much. And also, since it's such a short range of motion, just go a little bit higher on that rep range. But again, you don't want to swing it. You don't want to cheat by pushing out with your lats. You want it to be all side delt. Let's see how we do here. All right. So as you can see, that range of motion got shorter and shorter as I went. That's just what happens, man. I'm gonna keep it real with you. With a movement like that, if you stop when you're still coming up halfway, your delts aren't gonna feel as stimulated as they were if they reduce that range of motion as time goes by. All right, just like our other movement, We're going to do a back offset here as well, which is going to be the standard for most exercises that I do. We actually got 90% here, so we're just going to match reps from what we did last time, and that should take us to 1 IR again. All right. Something I didn't mention previously is that even though we're using straps, we still want to grip the dumbbell as hard as possible. It's called muscle irradiation. If you got a weak link in that chain, it's not going to fire as effectively as it could. Just try and experiment. Do heavy partials with a looser grip and see how that feels on your shoulder, then grip. It's going to feel a lot stronger and a lot better. All right, just like I mentioned before, we still need to hit our front delts. It still adds to that side pose thickness. And what we're going to do here is called a 6-way. You're still going to get a lot of side delts in this exercise, but it's going to be limited by your front delts when you get to that overhead position. You'll see what I mean in a second. All right, so I got 2 5-pound plates here. You raise this side, move to the front, you go overhead. Then you reverse the movement. There's not a whole lot to think about here other than going up to the side. And then when you move here, when you go from here to here, you're still gonna feel it in your side delt, right? Then when you go overhead, you're still gonna feel it in the side delt here. But the moment you get from here to here, it starts shifting to the front delt. Then when you get overhead, all front delt, mostly. So do 1 warm-up set here, because our shoulders are already nice and warm, especially our front delts. And then you go immediately into your top set. All right, as I mentioned before, we don't have 7.5 dumbbells here, so I just took a 5 and threw a 2.5 on top of it. We're actually gonna do 2 straight sets here because what's 90% of 7.5? I don't know, 67.5, 6.75? How am I gonna figure that out? So, we're going to shoot for the same thing here. Another 6 to 8 rep set and see how we do. So perfect, smack dab in the middle of the rep range that I wanted. Another thing I failed to mention before is when it comes to this movement, you want to pause for a good half second to a second in each position. And then when you get overhead, you don't want to force that rotation. Go as much as it takes for your shoulders to contract, as well as feel natural. All right, on to our second straight set here. Let's see if we can get close to matching. If you take a set close to failure, the reps are going to drop off if you do stick with the same weight. So I'm expecting something like 5 to 6 reps here. If I match 7, that means I may have miscalculated my RIR on that last set, but we'll see. Oh yeah, definitely not hitting 7. Yeah, that's it. All right, moving on to my chest work now. I only got 1 exercise planned here because it's not my focus for this block. My main focus for this block is upper chest, legs, glutes specifically, as well as shoulders. Chest is still important, but it takes the backseat on this day. This is my lighter day or a pumping day. I have a heavier base day that I do earlier in the week that is geared more towards upper chest. I'm hitting more of the sternal fibers here today. And what I picked for that is machine flies. Not a super complicated lift, but there are some important nuances. So you want to set the pins up here so that there is stretch at the bottom, but you don't want to have to go so far back. Because after a certain point, you're not stretching your chest, you're stretching your biceps, and you're putting yourself at injury risk. So to determine your range of motion, what you want to do is just naturally bring your arms back as far as they can. When you meet that resistance, that is your range of motion for the exercise. So in order to get in position, grab one handle, bring it around, grab the other handle, bring it around, put your upper back against the pad, and then start cranking. Same form here as always, 1 second at the bottom, Explosive concentric, 1 second at the top, and then lower slowly. For your warm-ups, you always want to do about 6 reps. Oh, second warm-up set. First set should be around like 10 to 12. Now, another thing that I want to note here is that I grip the handles pretty low and my butt is screwed forward some. The reason I do this is not because I'm saying I'm working the lower pec, it's simply because it just feels better on my shoulder. I'm an old man, and gripping too high puts too much strain on my AC joint. So I grip nice and low. There we go. All right, on to my top set now. Now, one thing I want to emphasize here, especially when it comes to bodybuilding, is you don't want to start every exercise super hyped up. All right, top set time. Not much more to add here, so I'm just going to crank. Let's see how we do. So one thing I want to point out here that I forgot to mention earlier is you notice when I'm doing my flies, I'm not trying to jam my hands together. Like, that's not necessary. You just want to raise the movement until your pecs maximally contract. That's all you need to do. All right, back off set time. All right, moving on to lats now. After all, this is an upper body day, not a push day. What I ultimately chose was to do a seated cable lat row with an easy bar. Like I said, I'm old. I don't have that much rotation in the wrist. So when I use a straight bar, it puts a lot of pressure on my wrist and makes my bicep feel real weird. And personally, I'm trying to make a comeback here. Bicep tears aren't gonna help with that, are they? So let me walk you through the exercise. I'm sure I got the right weight on. Yeah, so straps, obviously. Got that nice and strapped up. You get a nice, flat, good, sturdy foot position. And then you get the weight in position. So what you ultimately want to do is bring the bar low to really hit the lats. And you don't want to pull all the way back or high. That's a lot of rear delts and traps. You want to pull low until your arms are parallel with your body. That's going to hit the lats the most. All right, I'm not gonna lie, this feels really heavy, so I'm probably not hitting 7 here, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. Yeah. All right, yep, see, I fell short, but that's completely fine and it happens sometimes. One thing I did forget to mention though, on the earlier description, you don't wanna think about pulling with your arms. You want to think about driving back with your elbows like someone's hand is pushing there. That's going to activate your lat way more than trying to do this with the row. All right, so what am I doing for my back off since I fell short? The simple answer is nothing. I'm not going to play the guessing game of having to do calculations to make sure I get back in that 7 rep range. So I'm just going to, again, drop the weight 10% and do 5 reps. Keep it simple sometimes, guys. So we're finishing up with arms now with literally my least favorite bicep exercise ever. And that is the alternating supinating seated dumbbell curl. Why do I hate this exercise? Well, simply put, partially tore my pronator teres years ago. And this motion right here, I don't like it. Feels weird. But sometimes you got to do stuff that you hate to get what you want. So what are the cues here? Real simple. You want to brace your upper back, keep your arms back, and then curl with supination. But the trick here is don't grip in the middle. I mean, you can, but if you're really not good at supination, grip a little bit higher towards the end so you have more of that to work against. Also, don't think about turning your wrists. Think about initiating the curl by leading with your pinky. Start with your weak side first. And then just keep going. You always want to start with your weak side because that's going to be the side that needs to grow the most. And if you develop fatigue from doing a set, it's going to reduce the amount of motor units that can be recruited in the other limb. In addition to that, you only match reps with your strong side. So this way your strong side doesn't keep getting bigger while your weak side is only growing so much. It prevents that gap from widening. All right, top set time. Let's see how many I can get. Moving for 7, maybe 8. Back off set time. Nothing really more to add here, except maybe that I'm going to start with my right side this time, because even though my left arm is smaller, my pronator is weaker on the other side. Alright, yeah, that was a way better idea. Guess I'm starting with my right side from now on. Alright, believe it or not, we're almost done this workout, even though it feels like it's been 3 hours. It hasn't, but it feels like it. So we're on to a machine preacher curl now. Why are we doing 2 bicep exercises if my arms aren't the main focus during this block? Well, that's the trick answer there. My arms are always kind of focused. Have you seen them? They're a little small. So just do this, add a little bit extra volume. Also, I have 3 days until my next upper body workout that involves arms. So I have that time to actually recover from that extra stimulus. In addition to this, I just did a movement that's kind of meant to work on muscular imbalances. This is a bilateral movement. I'll actually be able to train both my arms to failure and get a good stimulus on both. Not to mention different range of motion, different force curve, adds a little different stimulus. So with these, you just want to think about having a seat high enough that your arms are at 45 degrees and you're not down too low or up too high. You just want it nice there. And when you're lowering the weight, you don't want to come all the way down. How many bicep tears have you seen going from here to here? A lot, right? So just cut out that range of motion. And you just grip the handles, you bring it up. So this is your range of motion. Ready? Here to here. You want to control the weight on the way down. You don't want to drop it because, again, you want to build that tension to stimulate muscle growth, but also you don't want to tear anything. Keep those elbows glued to the pad, and you just let your biceps do the work. All right, unlike the other exercises, I'm only doing 1 set here. Why only 1 set? Simply put, the biceps take a while to recover. They receive a lot of muscle damage for the amount of stimulus that they get. Frankly, again, I don't want to tear anything. I've already done 2 bicep sets with my previous exercise. I don't need more than that. Alright, it's better than last time by 1 rep. Whatever. Alright, finally on to my last exercise, thank God. So here's probably the most controversial exercise that I do, and that is a standing overhead extension, but I use 2 towels. Why do I use 2 towels? Well, simply put, just like a lot of guys, grip strength is kind of important to me. I worked a lot of grip over the past couple of months, and this is enough just to maintain my grip strength while I train my triceps. It doesn't interfere much with the exercise, and it doesn't really take away much from my triceps' ability to extend. So what the setup here is, just get a D handle, take 2 different towels, and loop it through. Make sure the pin is set low enough that when you unrack it, it's not bottomed out and you're able to stretch. Also, another thing you want to think about is not trying too hard to drive your elbows in or out in any type of direction. Just do what feels natural. You want some tuck, and you also want to think about trying to rip that rope apart at the top to activate the long head. So let's see what that looks like, right? See how it's not bottomed out, and see how my elbows aren't really like this or like this. They're just right nice in the center. Extend. See, my triceps are getting good work here, but I can definitely feel my grip working too. And neither is really maximized. That's okay. I'm not trying to really grow my grip here. I mean, we are trying to grow my triceps, but you know, sometimes we have to make small trade-offs. One thing you do want to consider though is that your lats are going to stabilize this, so you want to make sure that they're nice and tight as well. All right, top set time. Let's see how many we get. All right, that's good. All right, let's hit that back off and send it home already.